reality. That's called samvadi Brahma. There are two kinds of Brahmas are there. Samvadi Brahma, a Brahma means a delusion which turns out to be false, or a delusion which turns out to be right sometimes. Sometimes you superimpose something and then it turns out to be right. You think that there is a precious jewel lying there. In fact, there is only a piece of glass which is glittering, and you think that there is a jewel there, and you find a jewel there. Suppose that is not jewel, but you find jewel somewhere there. So somehow that glitter has helped you to discover jewel. And then that Brahma also has ultimately resulted into what? Has resulted into attainment of what you wanted to attain. And so, alright, this upasana is fine, aham Brahma. But ultimately, when that becomes a fact, until then this is therefore all this becomes upasana. Until then everything becomes upasana. Until this becomes knowledge, all it becomes vichara. In some form or the other, upasana goes on. And so, upasana is fine. But we should know that ultimately it is not the becoming, ultimately it is the knowing which alone will reveal myself to be an acceptable self. Not that I thrust acceptability upon myself. Nobody says, which there also you cannot do. You cannot insist that I am acceptable. We have to discover that I am acceptable. You keep on insisting and somebody gives one slap and I become unacceptable anyway. So I am Brahman, gives you one slap, hey, then I find myself I am not. So even acceptability, don't have to insist upon things. But this is a fact that we have to discover. Sayaha yo brahmahamiti veda sab brahmayava bhavati. So Veda and Bhavati. Brahma Veda, Brahmayava. Sayo havai Brahma Veda, Brahmayava Bhavati. So between Veda, meaning knowledge, and Bhavanam, there is no Vyavadhanam. That's all. Knowing is becoming. Not that not so in case of Dharma. You know Dharma, you do something, and then you become a Devata. Or that is, you go to Swarga, etc. But here knowing itself is becoming. And therefore, there is no Vyavadhanam, no intervention between knowledge and becoming. Between means and end. Kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drushte paravare. Asya karmani kshiyante. Asya, of this wise man, karmani kshiyante. All his karmas get exhausted. Tasmin drushte paravare. Tasmin paravare drushte. When that paravara is seen or known, drushte sati saptami. When it is seen, then karmani kshiyante, not later. So kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drushte paravare. So that is saptami. And tasmin drashte sati saptami. When that is seen, then all the karmas get exhausted. So seeing an exhaustion of karma. Karma stands for samsara. Some stands for bondage. So the bondage of samsara is exhausted or eliminated when it is seen. Again, between seeing and exhaustion of karma, no distance. Says Ratna Prabha, paravare, he explains that word. Param karanam. Avaram karyam. Tad rupe meaning tad adhisthane. Paravara means that which adhishthanam or substratum of para and avara. Para means superior, karanam. Avara is inferior, karyam. So that which is the substratum of karya and karana, which means that which is beyond both cause and effect. Tad adhisthane tasmin drushte sati. So he says, tasmin drushte sati. When that adhishthanam, so that which provides satta and the sphurti even to this cause and effect chain, which is called creation. So what is samsara? Is nothing but cause and effect. That is samsara. Hetu phalatmakaha samsara. That's all. That which is hetu also is phala, and what is phala also is hetu. That's the samsara. In this world or in this creation, you can never brand a given thing as effect. Because what is an effect also is cause. If it is effect, it is the end of the chain. But there is no end of the chain because what is effect also is cause. So in the effect there is always potential of a new cause, therefore it gives rise to another effect, except that effect happens to be another cause again. And that's how this whole chain of cause and effect can perpetuates. Therefore samsara is what? Hetu phalatmakaha. What is phalam itself becomes hetu. this body which is full of the past actions becomes hetu or cause for the future actions again, and that's how you hold on to anything, and that is holding on to something else. That thing, and that is how you are transported from what? Mrutyosya mrityum apnoti. From one death to another, we think that the death is the end of it. It is not. Mrutyosya mrityum apnoti. This death becomes merely a preparation for new birth. Otherwise it would be fine. This ashariratvam, we will wait. Even if you are miserable in this life, we will wait until death and we are free from it. It's not. Death is what? An event, which has the potential of a new event. So we must know the nature of samsara. Hetu phalatmaka samsara. So you can never depend upon anything as being the final thing. Because anything that you take refuge of takes as it depend upon something else. And that you find is dependable. So where will you go ultimately? Therefore this beggar comes to the Emperor Akbar, begging something. He finds Akbar also praying Allah, that you please give me this and that. He says, well, okay. If I take your refuge, but you are taking refuge of someone else, so I may as well take his refuge. The idea is until you reach the ultimate refuge, and that ultimate refuge cannot be cause or effect. Suppose that ultimate refuge itself is effect, then it will become cause of something else, and thus that ad infinitum, this anavastha dosha will be there. In life there is anavastha dosha, therefore this birth death continues. There is no avastha at all. Anavastheshu anavastha. Because there is no stability. Anavastha means ad infinitum. If you go on like this, it will never end. Never ending cycle. Avasthitam, in and through this anavasthitam. Well, anavastha means what? Everything is dependent upon everything else. And everything lends you to something else. And that is, in that, there is avasthitam. So you have to transcend this business. You have to see beyond this. Transcend and see beyond this. Even when this anavastha is there is avasthitam. If avasthitam is to be attained as a result of end of anavastha, where is the end of anavastha? End of this ad is not there at all. Even so, one has to therefore look beyond this anavastha. And therefore, tasmin adhishthane, in karya karana there is always anavastha. Because you with great enthusiasm, you do something to create an effect, except that turns out to be another cause, and therefore you get some other effect, that turns out to be cause of something else. Endless. Which is fine. There is nothing, this is fine as it is, as long as you know it, you see. You cannot withdraw from it also, but wherever you withdraw also is a karana. So it's not that you can get away from this. Where will you get away? Wherever you get away also is creation only. Now I'll take sannyasa, that becomes another samsara anyway. It can become. Anything can become a samsara if you take refuge of it. If you think that you will hold on to something, you will find that thing is holding on to something else. And then that thing you will find that is holding on to something else. And that is how the effect and cause change is perpetual. You can never find refuge anywhere. Durvara samsara davagni taptam dodhuemanam durdrishtavadahi bhitam prapannam. Poor people are all but tormented all along. They go from here to there and there to there. So we keep changing the situation, hoping that we shall get rid of it. That just another situation is waiting for you there. There is no cause for fear or anything. There is just cause for something to understand. That you cannot escape samsara by creating another situation. Therefore, adhisthana is what? That which is beyond cause and effect. Means this hetu phalatmaka samsara, one is to break that chain by realizing that in and through this changing, there is that changeless. Parahavare drushte. So when you see that, asya means what? Drashtuhu karmani kshiyante. Anarabdha phalani karmani kshiyante. Karmani means not including prarabdha karma. Again, so he makes a point here. Just anarabdha phalani means what? All the sanchita karmas and agami karma kshiyante nashyanti. Okay. Means the thing does not come to an end right away. The body continues, the prarabdha karma continue in spite of this. But they don't continue. Continue only for the onlooker. They don't continue for this. The prarabdha karma, a long discussion is there in this aparokshanubhuti. That prarabdha karma is for what? For whom? Is only for an onlooker. As far as a wise person is concerned, there is no prarabdha karma also, because if Atma had prarabdha karma, again It is tied up with something. Atma never had any karma anyway. It never performed karma, so it has not begun any karma, not accumulated any karma. This knowledge itself is the real knowledge. That Atma is ever free. So it's not that you get tied with something, but from the standpoint of the onlooker, there is so-called prarabdha. So anyway, however, it is necessary to make this point just to anarabdha phalani karmani kshiyante, meaning nashyanti. That prarabdha karma does not get exhausted, but sanchita and agami karma get exhausted. So here also, tasmin drushte paravare kshiyante chasya karmani. It's important. Drushte means drushte sati. At that time, when this knowledge is there, the karmas get exhausted. Everywhere, such beautiful quotations are there, which shows, as Vashyakara says, Brahma Vidyanantaram Moksham Darshayantyah. That moksha is there immediately after Brahma Vidya, Madhye Karyantaram Varayanti. There is no intervention in between, no karya. Very apt quotations, Anandam Brahmano Vidwan. Na vibheti kutascha. Vidwan also is present participle. Vidwan is the wise man, Vidwan means knowing. You see? So vid and Vidwan becomes a present participle. Of course, the nominative singular, Anandam Brahmano Vidwan. Knowing Brahmana Anandam. That Brahmana, Ananda of Brahman means Brahman, that is Ananda. So knowing Brahman, which is the nature of Ananda, na vibheti kutaschana. Then there is no fear. The fear is another name for samsara. So samsara has different names. Becoming is one name of samsara. So becoming comes to an end when you know Brahma as a self. This karma is another name of samsara. The karma comes to an end when you know paravara. This bhaya is another samsara. So na bibheti kutaschana. There is no fear at all, meaning there is no samsara. As long as duality is there, so long fear will be there in some form or the other. And then, na bibheti kutaschana. So kutaschana means from no source whatever is there any fear for the wise man when the wise man knows Brahman, which is Ananda, which is the very self. That means also Advitiya. Anandam, meaning Advitiyam. Brahmana Anandam means Brahmana Swarupam Anandam. As Ratna Prabhakara says, Brahmana Anandam. Anand of Brahman is not that. That Shesha Shashti is not there. But that Brahmana, that is called Upacharika Shashti. Brahmana Swarupam. That which is Swarupa, the true nature of Brahman itself is Ananda. So Brahman, that is Ananda. Vidwan, Vidwan means knowing. So two things are happening simultaneously. Vidwan na bibheti. Everywhere it says, Vidwan na bibheti. Knowing, he does not fear. As the knowledge is there is no fear at all. And therefore, knowledge and fear cannot go together. Fear is samsara, knowledge is moksha. Brahmana Swarupam Anandam Vidwan Nirbhayo Bhavati Dvitiya Abhavat. So whereas Dvaita is there, Bhaya is definitely there. Ananda means what? There is no duality. Ananda is Ananta. The Ananda is fullness or completeness or limitlessness where there is no duality. So knowing the self as Brahman, as non-dual, there is no fear. And that is how, even as knowledge takes place, the wise man becomes free from fear or samsara. Abhayam vai janaka praptosi. Hey Janaka, abhayam praptosi. You have attained fearlessness. Prapta asi again. Not that you will attain fearlessness. No. But prapta asi. Hey Janaka, you have attained fearlessness. So knowing, that's what he says, abhayam brahma praptosi ajnanahanat. Hey Janaka, on account of elimination of ignorance, you have attained abhayam, fearlessness, which is Brahman. Meaning moksha is not a phenomenon to take place in future. Asi, present, shows now. That as the ignorance is gone, now therefore, hey Janaka, you attained the fearlessness. So fearlessness is that which occurs now, as soon as the ignorance goes. tadatmanam eva aved aham brahmasmi tasmat tat sarvam bhavat. So this also is a total, there are not two vakyas, one vakya in fact. Tat atmanam eva aved. He knew himself. So this jiva who took his self as a limited self, himself knew as what? Aham brahmasmi. So this Mahavakya comes from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. He knew himself as I am Brahman. Tasmat, as a result of that knowledge, tat sarvam bhavata, he became everything. So being a alpatvam also is samsara. Alpatvam, not being everything, being a limited being also is samsara. So I am a limited being is a samsara. Tasmat tat sarvam bhavat, he became everything, meaning he became free from the sense of alpatvam, became free from samsara. Sistat jivakyam brahma gurupadeshat atmanameva aham brahmasmiti aved viditavat tasmad vedanat tad brahma purnam abhavat परिच्छेद भ्रांति हानाद एकत्वम अहम ब्रह्म इति अनुभवतः तत् then next one, but here it says तत् जीवाख्यम ब्रह्म गुरु उपदेशात आत्मानमेव अहम अवेद तत् आत्मानमेव अवेद. That is also there, tat is here. Tat atmanam eva aved. Not tada atmanam, but tat atmanam eva aved. What is tat? Tat means that. Tat jivakyam Brahma. Who is jiva indeed? Nothing but Brahman. So Brahman which so far took itself to be jiva. Atmanam aved. It knew the very self, meaning its true nature. How? Guru upadeshat. On account of the upadesha or instruction of the teacher, Atmanam eva aved. Viditatmananda, it knew the very self as what? Aham brahmasmiti. I am Brahma. In that manner, that Brahma knew. Who knows? Brahman alone. But Swami, who knows this? This is another question. Who knows it? Well, you can say whoever is ignorant knows. So in that sense, Ahankara is ignorant. So Ahankara discovers itself to be Brahman means what? Discovers that Ahankaratvam to be false. So ultimately, as Bhashyakara says in the second chapter, Veda vinashanam nityam. So when Atma is known to be avinashi, ajam and nityam, the question is all right, the Vidwan knows the Atma as indestructible, all right. But he is a knower of indestructible. He does not become indestructible. Veda vinashanam nityam, ya ena vajam avyam, ajam avyayam, avinashanam atmanam veda. So this wise man knows the self that is free from birth and death and indestructible, free from any change. Alright, so that Atma is free from samsara. But how about Vidwan? How does Vidwan become free from samsara? If I know the microphone, I don't become microphone because I am different from what I know. So also when Vidwan knows the self that is permanent or immortal, how does he become immortal? Then Bhashyakara asks the question, who knows the Atma? There are two entities here. One is Atma, other is Anatma. That's all we have. Anatma cannot know because it is Jada. And therefore by Parishesha Nyaya there also. So therefore by Parishesha Nyaya, by the rule of elimination, who knows the self as immortal? Self alone knows. What else can you say? How can you say self knows? How can there be the knowableness in self or knowerness in the self? All right, please tell me who is ignorant? When you say that I am ignorant, who is ignorant? So ultimately, for the knowledge and ignorance, the locus can be only a conscious being, and the conscious being is only one, and that's Atma. So when you say I am ignorant, who is claiming himself to be ignorant? Atma alone. On account of identification of all the buddhi vrittis, Atma take, and because of aviveka, not knowing them to be different from me, this Atma itself take himself to be ignorant. And when viveka takes place, Atma himself discovers himself to be wise. Whoever was ignorant is wise. Therefore it is said, Tat jivakyam Brahma, that Brahman which took itself to be jiva, Guru upadeshat, on account of upadesha or instruction of the Guru, Atmanameva aham brahmasmiti aved, knew the self as I am Brahman. Aved means viditavat, It knew the self as Brahma. Tasmat tat sarvam abhavat. Tasmat vedana. Tasmat means therefore. Tasmat means because of that knowledge. Because of that knowledge, tat sarvam abhavat. Tat Brahma purnam abhavat. It became everything, became complete. So knowing and becoming there again are one. Knowing the self as Brahman is becoming complete. Again there is no vyavadhanam or so paricheda bhranti hana. Because already he was complete, there is a paricheda bhranti. That I am alpa or I am limited was a bhranti. When that bhranti went away, it's not that he became everything, he discovered himself to everything. Or parichedhana, then it can go with the other one also. Tatra ko moha kashokaha ekatvam anupashyatah. Paricheda bhranti hanat ekatvam aham brahma iti anubhavatah. Tatra anubhava kale moha shoko nastah iti shrutinam artah. Shoka moha is another name for samsara. Samsara can be shoka moha or bhaya, alpatvam or karma or becoming. All these are different names of samsara. And the shoka and moha, tatra ko moha kashokaha. Where is the grief and where is delusion? Ekatvam anupashyatah. When he discovers the self to be ekatvam means advitiya. Discovers the self to be non-dual. So paricheda bhranti hana. That duality or separation was only bhranti. Ekatvam meaning aham brahma iti pashyatah anubhavatah anupashyatah. When one discovers the self as aham brahma, tatra anubhava kale, tatra ko moha, tatra means where? Then itself. Anubhava kale, at the very time when this seeing takes place, ko moha kashokaha, moha shoko nastaha, moha and shoka do not remain anymore. It is shrutinam arthaha. This is the meaning of all the shruti. Ityav adayah shrutayah. Brahma vidyanantaram moksham darshayantyah. All these Shrutis show moksha is taking place immediately as even Brahma Vidya takes place. Madhye karyantaram varayanti. They, by showing that moksha is that which is immediate consequence of knowledge, madhye, in between knowledge and moksha, karyantaram varayanti. There is no karyantaram. There is no doing involved there. There is no doing. Or there is no time, there is no vyavadhanam, no intervention whatever. If there is an intervention, you should do something to remove that intervention. If there is an intervention of time, between knowledge and moksha, if there is an intervention of time, you should do something to pass the time. And that also is an action that you must continue to survive until the time is gone. If the body is an intervention, you must wait until the body drops off. If the place is intervention, you must go someplace to eliminate that. But there is no intervention, and therefore, madhye karyantaram varayanti, between knowledge and moksha. So, jnana mokshayoho madhye karyantaram varayanti. Tasam tatparyamaha. So, what is the tatparya of all the Shruti? Brahma vidyanantaram darshayantyah. Madhye means what? Vidya tat phalayoho madhye. Between knowledge and its phala, in between, there is no karyantaram. Mokshasya vidiphalatve svargadivat kalandarbhavitvam syat. If moksha also were the result of vidhi, meaning has some injunction, therefore action, therefore apurva, svargadivat kalandarbhavitvam syat, then like svarga takes place at a future time, moksha also would have taken place in future time. Tathacha shrutibadaha, and therefore, this is vipaksha dandamaha. If you insist that moksha has to take place, all the shrutis will have to be, shrutibadha means all the shrutis will prove to be false. Do you like that? He doesn't want. He also accepts all the shruti vakyas as pramanam. They are all the pramanam which very clearly reveal that moksha is an immediate thing, immediately takes place or immediately is discovered as soon as knowledge takes place, and therefore all the shrutis will have to be negated or falsified if you insist that moksha is something that should take place in future. Iti bhavaha. See the last line of Purnanandya, Yada Purvajanyam Tat Kalandra Yatha Swargadi. Anything that is born as a Purva has to take place in future time, just as Swarga. The moksha hai. Moksha cannot be kintu jnana avyavahitottarajanya. Moksha, on the other hand, is that which is immediately born, immediately after the jnana, avyavahita, without any intervention. Pramanatvena udahata srijana vartamaha yo brahma ityadina. Okay. Yada hi jnanam tada moksha iti pratipadakena vartamanartha lat pratyena kalantara nirasah kriyate iti bhavaha. That's the idea. Yo brahma veda sa brahmayo bhavati. So yada hi jnanam, that Veda when he knows, brahmayo bhavati, he becomes. So yada hi jnanam tada moksha iti pratipadakena vartamanarthaka lat pratyena. In Veda also there is lat pratyaya vartamana, bhavati also is vartamana, and therefore yada vedanam tada moksha. This is the pratipadanam, this is what it shows us. Kalantara nirasa kriyate, that there is no other time. Evam sarvatra vijnayam, and this is what is to be seen in every quotation of the Shruti. Tasmin drishteti anena, drishte satiti anena, jnana avyavahito uttarajanyatvam karmanashasya pratiyate bhavaha. As we discussed, in case of kshiyante chasya karmani, as soon as knowledge takes place, the karmanasha takes place. Prakrite parivasyanam karoti mokshasya vidhifalatveதி. Mokshasya vidhifalatve, as we said, swargadivat kalandra bhavitvam syat. Okay. Now continuing, Ratnaprabha. Itasya moksha vaidhona. Itasya, for this further reason also, moksha vaidha. Vaidha is what? Vidhijanya. Moksha cannot be vidhijanya for this further reason. Tatha iti, says Bhashya, Tatha, no, tadhai tada, Tatha tadhai tada, Pashyan Rishir Vamadevaha, Pratipede, Aham Manurabhavam, Suryascha, iti, Brahma darshana sarvatma bhavayor madhye kartavyantar varanaya udaharyam tatha. This Shruti Vakyam udaharyam. This Shruti Vakya also should be presented as an illustration. For what? Brahma darshana sarvatma bhavayoho madhye karyantar varanaya. Between Brahma Darshanam, Pashyan, Tadhaetat, Rushihi Vamadeva, Pashyan, Pratipede. So Pashyan is seeing this. Therefore, Brahma Darshanam, so Aham Manuhu, Abhavam, Aham Suryascha, Abhavam. So this is what he saw. So even as is, so Tadhaetat Pashyan, seeing the Brahman or seeing the true nature of the self, this is what Rishi Vamadeva saw. This mantra he saw. Aham Manuhu Abhavam, Aham Suryascha. So Brahma Darshana, Sarvatma Bhavayoho Madhya. This Sarvatma Bhava. I became Manu, I became Surya, etc. Means I am everything. That's called Sarvatma Bhavaha. I am no more just Vamadeva, confined to this particular Upadhi, but I am the self of all. So this is called Sarvatma Bhava, meaning again moksha. Because being confined to one Upadhi again is called samsara. Because that is what creates alpatvam or the duality, and becoming free from samsara is becoming everything. So Brahma Darshana Sarvatma Bhavayoho Madhye Kartavyantar Varanaya. There is nothing that this Rishi Vamadeva had to do in order to see this mantra or see the Sarvatma Bhava after the knowledge. As soon as knowledge took place, Rishi Vamadeva discovered himself to be Sarvatma. So between the seeing the self as Sarvatma or all and knowing the self, there is no distance. Karya kartavyantar varanaya. There is no kartavya in between. Those who to eliminate the idea of kartavyant, another kartavya. This Shruti is to be seen as an illustration. Ratnaprabha explains, Tadha. So Tat meaning Brahma. ha etat. So tad ha etat. Etat is what? Etat pratyagasmi iti pashyan. Tad etat iti pashyan. That's how the vakya is. Tad Brahma etat pratyagatma asmi iti pashyan. That Brahman indeed I am. Pratyak means the very core of the self. So that Brahman in fact I am. Iti pashyan. Tad etat pashyan. Tad Brahma is etat atma. The seeing that oneness between Brahma and Atma pashyan. Tasmad jnanad Vamadeva Munindra. Pashyan is what? Tasmat jnanad. So that itself becomes a cause. That pashyan means seeing. Therefore, that's how it will be explained that just subsequently. That whenever in Sanskrit, therefore, the present participle is used, pashyan is present participle. Drush means to see. The present participle is pashyat. And the nominative singular is pashyan. Pashyan means one who is seeing. So whenever this present participle is employed, it is employed either to show a hetu, meaning the cause, or to show lakshana, meaning show the characteristic. That we'll see. Here it is in terms of hetu. That pashyan, seeing itself becomes a hetu for tasmad, therefore this tasmad jnana. Because of that knowledge, Vamadeva Munindra, that great sage Vamadeva, Shuddham Brahma Pratipede. Pratipede, he saw the self as Shuddham Brahma, pure Brahman. Pratipede Tatra Jnane Tishtan. Now you go to Puranadya Suryaschaiti iti avyavhito uttarajanya pratipadakam tadhaitat, not tassetat but tadhaitat pashyan ityadi suryascha iti antam vakyam udahartam iti bhashyanvaya. That's okay. That means tishtati gahatyoho madhye tadarsayoho madhye ityartha. So suryaschaiti, this is, since Ratnabhava does not give explanation, so Purnananda give explanation. So Suryaschaiti in the Bhashya, that you have to see that. So okay, then it comes a little later, Tishtati, etc. Okay, we interrupted ourselves, thinking that he has something to say. So Tad Brahma etat pratyagasmedi pashyan tasmad jnana. Since the seeing itself is a cause or hetu, tasmad jnana, by that, on account of that very knowledge, Vamadeva Munindra, that great sage Vamadeva, Shuddham Brahma Pratipede, saw himself as very Shuddham, pure, which is Brahman Pratipede. Pratipede means new or saw. Pratipede ha describes an event as, itihasa ha. So just to describe something that took place. Then says, Vakyartha muktva tatparyartha tatra jnane iti. So tatparya tatra jnane tishtan drushtavan Apamantran. Then he saw this mantra, Aham Manurabhavam, Aham Suryascha. This is a mantra that Vamadeva saw. Like Trishanku. Itat Trishankoho Vedanuvachanam, Aham Rukshasareriva. So Veda Anuvachanam, as Trishanku came to know the truth, then he declared like this, Aham Rukshasya Reriva. And so as Rishi Vamadeva saw the self, he said, Aham Manuha Bhavam, Aham Suryascha iti. Atmantran swasya sarvatmatva prakashakan. There is in Rigveda there is a Devi Sukta also, where there is this Vagrahmani, this woman, who is a Vidushi, wise person, she sees herself as I am everything, and he sees that I am Indra, I am Varuna, I am Mitra, I am all these devatas, and this is what I have become. So that Vidushi, that woman declares her vision as being Sarvatma. So the Vedas, by the way, there is a sukta called the Devi Sukta, very famous, of which the seer is this Vagrahmana. She was the daughter of a Rishi, I forget his name, and then she is credited with this sukta, which declares that I am everything. I am the creator, sustainer, everything. This is what she sees. And therefore, there are wise people, of course. There is evidence in the Veda itself that the wisdom was there even with the women also. Here also is aham manhu abhavam, aham suryascha. Aswasya sarvatmatva prakashakan aham manhu ityadin dadarsha ityartha. And thus, this Rishi Vamadeva saw the self as the self of all. So sarvatma bhava again is becoming free from alpatvam, meaning becoming, that is moksha. And as even he saw the Shuddham Brahma, saw the self as Shuddha Brahma, he discovered himself as everything, meaning that seeing itself was a cause for moksha, nothing in between. That's even better. That the knowledge itself is cause of moksha. Therefore, the effect follows immediately after the cause. That is all, that which obtains a moment before the effect is called cause. And therefore, effect is that which follows immediately after the cause, and therefore the Sarvatma Bhava follows immediately after the knowledge. So there is no Vyavadhanam also. This is a direct statement, which also shows that there is, in other statements we have to see that fact. Here it is also directly said. Bhashyakara gives an example, says there, Yatha Tishtan Gayate Iti Tishtati Gayatyoho Madhye Tat Kartrukam Karyantaram Nasti Iti Gamyate. Yatha, just as Tishtan Gayate, standing he sings. Tishtan means standing. That is again present participle. Gayate, he sings. Standing, he sings. This is the Vakya. Here, standing and singing, both of them are together simultaneous. Iti tishtati gayatyoho madhye. Between standing and singing, tat kartrukam karyantaram nasti. Not that the person does anything else. Singing and standing and singing, both of them are simultaneous. So, that is how the present participle is used here, tishtan. And there also is pashyan. Vamadeva pratipede. Pashyan pratipede. Even seeing Brahma, he saw himself as the self of all. Just as standing, he sings, and so also pashyan pratipede. Seeing, he knew. Or seeing, he knew himself as the self of all. Tishtati gayatyoho madhye tat kartrukam karyantaram nasti gamyade. In a prayoga such as this, Tishtan Gayati, we can see that there is no karyantaram, there is no other action involved on the part of this singer. Between standing and singing, there is no other karya or action involved. So also we find Pashvamadeva Pashyan Pratipede. So between Pashyan meaning between seeing and Pratipede, between becoming the Sarvatma, that there is no distance at all. So wherever present participle is used, then so that is why Pashyannatmani Maya Bahirivod Bhutai Yatha Nidraya. Pashyan Vishwam Darpana Dushyamana Nagri Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyan Atmani Maya Bahirivod Bhutam Yatha Nidraya. He sees, even as he is seeing also, that Vishwam, that is like a city seen in a mirror, which actually within, but then he sees it without, then you can connect it. Pashyan, seeing. So while seeing, then also when he wakes up, yes sakshat kurute prabodha samaye svatmanam evadvam. Somebody say that even though seeing this jagat, he sees himself as non-dual. Is that seeing and so badham or the elimination also takes place right away. It's not that the wise man does not see the jagat, but then in spite of seeing also, he sees also the non-dual. So therefore, wherever that present participle is used, it shows that is being done along with something else. That is being done, that person is doing, and then along with that is doing is a continuous action there. There is no vyavadhanam between that, and if some other action is there is no distance between them. Now, Ratnabhavakara has to comment upon this illustration of Bhashyakara. Tishthan Gayati, standing he sings, and Pashyan Pratipede, seeing he saw, or seeing he became. He says these illustrations are not compatible. Tishthan Gayati is an illustration which is not compatible to Pashyan Pratipede. Even though present participle is there, but still there is no compatibility between Drishtanta and Dashtanta in all the elements. Yadyapi sthitihi gana kriyayaha lakshanam. So, says when you say Tishtan Gayati, means what? The person who is standing he sings. So that standing is what? Sthitihi gana kriyayaha lakshanam. That only qualifies the person that the singer is standing, that's all. The singer is standing. So standing becomes the characteristic of singer. So lakshanam. Brahma darshanam du Brahma pratipatti kriyaya hetuhu. However, here this Pashyan Pratipede, Pashyan means seeing or knowing, Pratipede he became. Therefore, knowing is the cause of becoming. In this particular thing, in this particular Vakya, Pashyan Pratipede, that Pashyan meaning seeing is the cause of becoming Sarvatma. Whereas in case of Tishtan Gayati, that standing is merely a characteristic of the singer, not the cause of the singer. It's not that because he is standing that he sings. Otherwise, whenever he has to sing, he must stand only. Or whenever he is standing, he must sing alone. We don't find that he is standing. Very often we find the fellow is standing also but not singing. Or elsewhere we find him singing but not standing. Therefore, there is no invariability between singing and standing. Therefore, standing and singing are not connected as cause and effect. Cause and effect must always go together. So between Pashyan and between Tishtan and Gayati, there is no relation such as cause and effect, or that Tishtat is not actually is hetu or the cause of Gayanam or singing. But Pashyan Pratipede, seeing Brahman is a hetu for becoming all. So relationship that Pashyan enjoys with Pratipede is what? One of hetu. Where the relationship that Tishtan enjoys with Gayanam is one of lakshanam. He just characterizes his person. Maybe very often he stands when he is singing, but not always. So therefore, standing is a characteristic or lakshanam which characterizes this person. But standing is not the cause for singing. The standing does not bring about singing. Or singing is not required, standing is not required for singing. Because you find him standing, not singing also, and sometimes you find him singing, not standing also. Therefore, standing is not the cause for singing. It is only lakshanam. It is a characteristic of this fellow at this time, if not at all at the time also. Iti Vaishamyam asti. So that is the Vaishamyam. That the relationship between Tishtan and Gayanam is not the same as relation between Pashyan and Pratipede, Pratipatti. Tathapi. Then does it mean that Bhashyakara has made a mistake? No. Tathapi. So when which it is necessary to do this. Otherwise, once you give an illustration, people will have a tendency to find all kinds of meanings. Swamiji, the other day in the 10th story, you said that a brahmachari came and said, you are the 10th man. And the other day you said, an old man came and said, you are the 10th man. So which is right? This was actually a serious question. In the class, when we were conducting class in Theosophical Society, after a few years, in the evening, a person asked this question. People often ask, Swamiji must have question answer session, but we discourage because of the past experiences. But this person asked a question, Swami, this morning you told the story of 10th man. Then you said that the brahmachari came, because those days I was a brahmachari, So brahmachari came and said, you are a 10th man. And this evening when you told the story, you said that an old man came and said, you are the 10th man. So which one is right? I said, I am wrong, that's all I have to say. So which part of the illustration you have to take is very important. Otherwise, very often there is a tendency in the part of the people to try to apply every element of an illustration into that which is illustrated. And here also it says, you say that Tishtan Gayate. And Tishtan therefore is Lakshanam of the singer. So Pashyan Pratipede becomes Lakshanam. We don't present Lakshanam. In fact, Pashyan Pratipede, that Pashyam is Hetu. That is not the element of the illustration. Illustration is that both of these are simultaneous, that's all. Tishtan Gayati, standing and singing are at the same time. Pashyan Pratipede, knowing and seeing are also at the same time. That's only the aspect of the illustration. But Bhashyakara did not choose the illustration very carefully, maybe. Or maybe he had just, because his attention is only in thing, that simultaneity. He doesn't see everything else. His attention is only focused on the vastu, that's all. And therefore, you have to see sometimes what he sees. Otherwise, there can be this kind of, usually that doesn't happen, even that also does not happen. But then, sometimes when you find that the illustration is not quite matching, see, Shruti quotations are just perfect match. Sometimes illustration does not match totally or very well, then of course there is the element of the illustration, of the simultaneity is there, but in other aspect the illustration is not compatible. That is what the Tikakara also has to say. Tathapi lakshana hetuho kriyayaha iti sutrena kriyam prati lakshana hetuho lakshana arthayoho vartamanat dhatoho parasya latah shatru shanachavadashu bhavatoh iti vihita shatru pratyaya samarthyat तिष्ठन् गायते इति उक्ते तत्कर्तृकं कार्यान्तरं मध्ये न भाति इति एतावता पश्यन् प्रतिवेदयति अस्य दृष्टान्तमः यथा इति. And so, this is a Panini Sutra. Lakshana hetvoho kriyayaha. It is Sutrena. By that Panini Sutra, it is Sutrena, Vyakarana Sutrena. Kriyam pati lakshana hetvoho arthayoho vartamanat. Idea is that for a kriya, wherever for a kriya, a lakshana or a hetu is there, लटः शत्रुशानचौ आदेशो भवतः धातोः परस्य after the dhatu latah. So instead of that pratyaya of the vartamana, instead of saying tisthati gayati cha, this is what one could have said. He is standing and singing. But instead of applying that thing pratyaya, which is what the lat means vartamana pratyaya is it, which is to apply to the root stha, this particular pratyaya is applied, which is called Shatru Shanacha Adeshu Bhavata. Shatra means Takara, At Pratyaya. And Shanacha is again that Ana or Mana. So Shatru and Shanacha, both of them are what we call the Pratyayas applied for the sake of present participle, whether the verb is Parasmaipada or Atmanepada. And therefore that Mana Pratyaya will be applied if it is Atmanepada, and At Pratyaya will be applied if it is Parasmaipada. Iti vihita shatru pratyaya samarthyat. Vihita means Vyakarana Sutra uktaritya vihita. Vyakarana Sutra says it doesn't actually do vidhanam. It describes what is happening. Vyakarana doesn't say you should do this. It is happening, therefore the Vyakarana describes. But anyway, for you, when you now construct a sentence, then you should do it this way. That's how Vyakarana Sutra becomes vidhanam for a new fellow. Even though Vyakarana is based on what is existing, but when you use the language, you don't have any business to construct sentences as you like. You must now construct the sentences as enjoined or as ascertained by the grammarian Panini. Vihita shatru pratyaya samarthyat tishthan gayate iti ukte. And therefore, that tishthan, that pratyaya is applied to the root stha, and therefore the prayoga there becomes tishthan gayati instead of tishtati gayati. Because in tishtati, if tishtati or standing is either the hetu for gayanam or is lakshana for gayanam, then you should do this. Otherwise, no. Tishtati gayati, if there is either hetu or... But generally, fellow must be singing normally when he is standing. That characteristic must be there, generally speaking. Generally, this fellow is fond of singing or when he stands, whatever it is, he gets inspired of whatever. Therefore, standing becomes the characteristic of the singer. If you want to point out this, otherwise, if once generally he is standing, and that doesn't mean that it becomes lakshanam. But generally speaking, this is his characteristic. If you want to point out, then it is very beautifully done by tishthan gayati. That means that this fellow is singing while standing. Usually, this is what he does. Iti ukte tat kartrakam karyantaram madhyena bhati. That means this singer does not do anything else between singing and between standing and singing. Iti etavada pashyan pratipede iti asya dushtantam. Only that element, that karyantaram madhyena bhati, that there is no karyantaram, nothing in between the standing and singing, that is all that is intended. That aspect of the illustration alone is to be applied in pashyan pratipede iti asya dushtanam yatha iti. That's all. So that there is no vyavadhanam or intervention between standing and singing. So also there is no intervention between pashyan meaning seeing and becoming sarvatma. That is the idea. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sūtra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Atha Om Atha Om Atha Tu Samanvayad. 54. Tatha Tadhai Tada Pashyan Rishirvamadevah Pratipede Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha Iti Brahma Darshana Sarvatma Bhavayor Madhye Kartavyantar Varanaya Udaharyam Yatha Tishthan Gayate Iti Tishtati Gayatyor Madhye Tatkartrikam Karyantaran Nasti Iti Gamyate. Itasya moksho vaidho na ityaha tathayati. This is another reason why we say that moksha is not vaidha vidhijanya hai, not born of a vidhi, karma or apurva, because the taking place of knowledge and removal of samsara, or taking place of knowledge and freedom, both of them take place simultaneously. There is nothing in between taking place of the knowledge of the self and the freedom. There is no karyantaram, there is no other karyam. There is nothing happening in between, there is no intervention between them, and therefore also we say that moksha is not karyajanya. Had there been some other karya between the knowledge, atma jnanam, between the knowledge of the self and moksha or freedom, had there been a need of some other karyam, some other activity, in terms of even, as we will see, meditation and whatnot, then also we would say that moksha is, if there was a need for that, or there was an absolute rule that something must be done. After the taking place of knowledge, that something must be done. Had there been a rule, then we would say that moksha is karyajanya hai. But no. We find that when all the obstacles are eliminated and when the knowledge shines, then that is freedom. And there is nothing that is required to be done between taking place of knowledge and freedom. And for that, Bhashyakara has quoted this Tadhaitat Pashyan Rishirvamadevah Pratipede. Tat means Brahma. Etat Pratyak Asmiti Pashyan. Seeing this fact that Brahman I am, iti Pashyan, seeing this fact. So Pashyan, as we said, represents the person who is the moment. So there is no present participle as such in Sanskrit. But then the present participle is like that. Pashyan is the one who is seeing. So seeing, etc. So when there is a present activity in English, we would call it present participle. Here on the other hand, Pashyan means one who is seeing. Tishtan means one who is standing. Gayan means one who is singing. This is how it is equivalent to present participle. But this use of Pashyan, Tishtan, Gayan, when does it occur? When there is this simultaneity of two things here. That seeing something is happening, standing something is happening, or singing something is happening. So Pashyan, that's what was said later, Tasmad Jnanat. So here on account of seeing, Tasmad Jnanat, Vamadevo Rushi Munindra Shuddham Brahma Pratipede. And thus on account of seeing that Brahman I am, on account of seeing this fact, Rushir Vamadeva, the great sage, Shuddham Brahma Pratipede. He attained Shuddham Brahma. He became Shuddha Brahma. What is it? Sarvatma. That Brahma which is so Tatra Jnane Tishtan, remaining in that Jnanam. So because Tishtan Gayati, also it is said, therefore Tatra Jnane Tishtan, remaining in that knowledge, Drushtavan Atmamantran Pratipede Atmamantran Drushtavan. He saw these mantras Swasya Sarvatmatva Prakashakan. This mantra Aham Manorabhavam Suryascha. This mantra which reveals the self to be the self of all. This mantra Rushi Vamadeva saw while remaining in the knowledge. Meaning both of them were simultaneous. When he gained the knowledge, he also saw the fact that the self is the self of all, which is Brahman. And yatha tishtan gayadeti tishtri gayatyoho madhye tat karturakam karyantram nasti iti gamyate. Just as in a common usage, when he says standing he sings, we know that, we see that between standing and singing there is no other karyantaram, no other activity, that both of them are simultaneous. And as we say, Tikakara points out the difference between Drishtanta and Darshtanta. Tishtan Gayati is Drishtanta, illustration, and Pashyan Pratipede is Darshtanta, that which is illustrated. And that this Drishtanta is not applicable to Darshtanta in every aspect. Because whenever they use this present participle, the present participle is employed for two purposes, either for Lakshana or for Hetu. So either that present participle indicates Lakshana or characteristic of a person. Like Tishtan Gayate, standing he sings, represents the characteristic of the singer. That generally speaking, perhaps he is standing while singing, and therefore standing he sings, when we say, that represents Lakshanam or a general characteristic of this person. So they give this example. For example, Shayanaha Bhunjate Yavanaha. These Yavana, the mlech fellows, Shayanaha Bhunjate. They eat while lying down. So Yavanaha alone can do. In Hindus can never do. They can never eat, while lying down. In grammar you find this illustration. So this shows Lakshanam. Shayanaha Bhunjate Yavanaha. This Yavana. Yavana means mlecha or whoever they are. So they eat while lying down. So that shows a general characteristic. That does not, generally speaking, when they are eating, they are doing it while lying down. This is a general characteristic. Not that whenever they are lying down that they are necessarily eating. But generally speaking, when they eat, they are lying down. Or even lying down also they eat these fellows, And this is how this shows their general characteristic. Then, Harim Pashyan Muchyade, another illustration. Harim Pashyan Muchyade. On seeing Hari, he is liberated. There, this Harim Pashyan, seeing of Hari becomes the cause. He is liberated because of seeing Hari. Hari means Lord. So seeing the Lord, he is liberated. The seeing the Lord is the cause of liberation. So Harim Pashyan Muchyate, when we say, then Pashyan, seeing of the Hari becomes what? Cause or Hetu for this mocha, meaning this vimocha, meaning vimochanam or for moksha. Whereas Shayanaha Bhunjate Yavanaha, when we say that, That is not the cause, that because he is lying down that he is eating, no. But then, lying down is eating is a general characteristic. So in that case, the present participle is used in the sense of lakshana. In the harim pashyan muchyate, in that case, the present participle is used in the sense of hetu. Either that shows a cause, because of this something happens, or this is a general characteristic, lakshana or hetu. So Panini Sutra is lakshana hetuho kriyayaha, that is lataha shatrushanacho. So whenever you want to indicate lakshana, a characteristic, or hetu or a cause for something else, then instead of the present tense, you apply this pratyaya called shatru or shanacha. Shatru is applied for parasmapada, which is at, and shanacha, ana, is applied for atmanipada, shayanaha. That was the illustration for atmanipada. Or pashyan is illustration of parasmapada. Now, in Tishtan Gayate, when it says standing he sings, that use of present participle is in the sense of lakshana. Meaning that this fellow generally seems to be standing while singing. And so this represents a general characteristic of a singer. Tishtan Gayati, standing he sings. So there the Shatru Pratyaya, or rather, Shatru Pratyaya is in the sense of lakshana. But here, Pashyan Pratipede, seeing Brahma, seeing that self is Brahman, he saw himself as the self of all, or he attained Brahman, which is self of all. Then here also Pashyan is present participle, but not in the sense of lakshana, in the sense of hetu. On account of seeing Brahman, that he saw himself as the self of all. The Pashyan here is in the sense of hetu. So the illustration, Tishtan Gayati, is in the sense of lakshana, and the illustrated Pashyan Pratipede is in the sense of hetu. In that sense, the compatibility between the two is not there. Even though that compatibility is not, there is a compatibility in as much as between Tishtan and Gayanam there is no Kriya involved, and between Pashyan and Pratipatti also there is no Kriya involved. In that sense, the illustrations are okay. Not in every aspect, but in this particular aspect, the two are compatible. Drishtanta and the Ashtanta are compatible. This is a point that the Tikakara seeks to make. Said Yadyapi Sthitihi Gana Kriyayaha Lakshanam. In case of illustration, Sthitihi, standing, is Gana Kriyayaha Lakshanam. Is Lakshanam, characteristic of the act of singing. Maybe he gets inspired when he stands or whatever it is. So different people do different things, The people when they are singing, they do different things. Ask them to sing in satsang or something like that. When people, of course, are all, they have the practice and it's okay. Otherwise, people require, to invoke that thing. So there used to be what they call starting trouble, So there was one brahmachari in Sandipani. Whenever you ask him to sing, he liked to sing. And he sang well also, this dhoon, etc. When you ask him to sing, that's all. He used to close the eye and do lots of things like that, And after 5 minutes of some activity, then something will come out. So everybody will watch that. And they used to brand him as starting trouble. So he needs to do something, perhaps, in order to invoke that. Therefore, the characteristic of this person is, he sings while closing his eyes, That becomes, when his eyes are open, then attention gets distracted and he forgets things, or that he doesn't get that inspiration. Eyes are closed, then perhaps he gets that, and therefore, closing the eyes, he sings when he says, that becomes a general characteristic of this person. So, this is Lakshana. So, Yadyapi Sthitihi Gana Kriyayaha Lakshanam, in Tishtan Gayate, the standing is general Lakshanam of Gana Kriya. Brahma Darshanam tu Pashyan Pratipede, Pashyan is Brahma Darshanam tu Brahma Pratipatti Kriyayaha Hetuhu. Whereas, Brahma Darshanam, Pashyan is, the knowledge of Brahman is Brahma Pratipatti Kriyayaha Hetuhu. That is only the Hetu for attainment of Brahman. Seeing of Brahman is a Hetu of the cause for attainment of Brahman. Iti Vaishamyam Asti. There is illustration in the sense of Lakshana and they illustrated in the sense of Hetu. That means Vaishyam. Tathapi Lakshana Hetuhu Kriyayaha. Even then, how come then? Bhashyakara gives an illustration of present participle in both the case. It is not the participle-ness that is intended as the purpose, but presentness is the purpose. In the present participle, the presentness is the common between Drishtanta and Dashtanta, and not what the participle conveys. That is not the part of illustration. That is the idea here. तथापि लक्षण हेतुओ क्रियायाः इति सूत्रेण क्रियां प्रति लक्षण हेतुओ अर्थयोः वर्तमानात्मनि विद्यमानात् क्रियां प्रति towards a kriya either lakshana is possible or hetu is possible. So towards an activity there is a possibility of either a lakshana, a characteristic, or a hetu. धातोः परस्य लटः शत्रुशानचौ आदेशौ भवतः. When this is there, then dhatoho parasya, after the dhatu, instead of the suffix of present tense, lataha shatrushanacho adesho bhavataha. So instead of the present, the suffix of the present tense, you apply the shatru or shanacha pratyaya. Iti vihita shatru pratyaya samarthyat, and therefore since the shatru pratyaya is there, tishtan gayate ukte तत्कर्तृकम कार्यांतरम मध्ये न भाति. That's all. Tatkartrukam, that this person who is singing doesn't do anything else between singing and standing. Idetavata pashyan pratibheda ityasya drishthantam. So in that aspect alone, this pashyan pratibheda, seeing he attained, is the drishtanta. That's all. If you are interested in more detail, well, you can look at the Purnanandiya on the page 154. व्यावर्तकम चिन्ह शब्द परिचायकम वा इत्यर्थः. Now that will become clear. See next one. तिष्ठन् गायते इत्यत्र स्थितिकालीन गानक्रियावान पुरुषः इति. तिष्ठन् गायते स्थितिकालीन Gana kriyavan purusha. When you say standing he sings, then what an understanding we get? That he is a Gana kriyavan purusha. He is a person who is singing, doing the act of singing. Sthiti kalina, at the time of standing, he sings. This is what we understand. So nicely described. Sthiti kalina Gana kriyavan purusha. That he is Gana kriyavan, possessed of the kriya of singing, Sthiti kalina, at the time of standing. Iti bodhat tishtan gayate, this is what we understand. Iti bodhat itara kale gana kriya vyavartika sthitihi bhavati na hetuhu. But then it doesn't mean that while he sings he does stand, but that doesn't mean that whenever he stands he necessarily sings. So while singing the fellow stands, but that does not mean that whenever he stands then he necessarily sings. So standing and singing are not always associated, not inseparable. It is true that singing takes place while standing, but it's not that the standing always brings about singing. So we cannot say that he sings because he stands. So standing is not the hetu for singing. On the other hand, therefore standing becomes what we call lakshana, or a general characteristic of this person. That while he is eating, he eats in a particular manner. So this is how they notice all the time, The people are always watching you. If there is a certain style of eating, they say, don't do this, or do it that way, So people develop certain characteristics. While drinking water, while eating, so they keep watching me, when I'm sitting there in Sailasburg on the dining table. In the beginning, when I drink water like this, they just watch. Or I take something and just throw it in my mouth, which I know unknowingly, You develop certain styles, but not touching it, that's all. So how does it happen? It goes right in there, When he tries, it goes in nose and things like that. And so they observe this. So it's a peculiar, this is Swami eats in a very peculiar way. Or sometimes they eat with hand and then you combine things in a certain way. I said, look, this is how it's to be eaten. You don't eat chapati separately, then bhaji separately, and rice separately, and dal separately. Because that's how they eat. Gujarat is a place where everything is, India I guess, everything is mixed. There everything is eaten separately. At the most bread and butter, and then soup. But then here bread, butter, soup, sabji, rice, everything is mixed together, And so they watch. So how is to be eaten? I said, take this chapati and then take some little bit of sabji and then with that take a little sip of dal, and this is how it is eaten. Or when you eat rice, don't eat rice alone. Add some dal in there, and with the sabji you eat, That's it. So these are some peculiarities. When they eat, they have certain peculiar characteristics. When we eat, we have certain... among us also, everybody has their own characteristic. And that's everybody has some name in the home anyway, for different things. So everybody, therefore, people are at home, always some brands are there. Because when this fellow does a given thing, he always does it in accompaniment with something else. So when he does pata, then somebody does like, that's all. And so while shaking, he chants or whatever it is. So different things are there, And this is how we call it characteristic. That doesn't mean whenever he does this, he sings, but generally when he sings, or generally when he chants, then this is how you find him doing. So that becomes what we call lakshana or characteristic. But not hetu, not the cause. Na hetu iti attah karyantar prasakti. Karyantar prasakti means while standing some other karya can take place, because standing is not the hetu for singing. Sthitehe karyantaravarakatva bhavat. That standing does not necessarily exclude any activity other than singing. That standing can be accompanied with things other than singing. And therefore you cannot say, if there is always accompaniment, then they are related as cause and effect. There, what is it? Purvakshana bhavi. So that which occurs just before the effect takes place, that is called cause. So cause and effect are always associated. So where the effect is, the cause must be. If this invariable anvaya vyatireka is there, then you know that the cause, when the daylight is, the sun must be there. And daylight cannot be if sun is not. So anvaya and vyatireka, then we know that sun is the cause for day. That we cannot say, that wherever singing is, standing is, and wherever standing is, singing is. If this is the case, then we know that standing and singing are invariably associated. In that case, we would say that standing is the cause of singing. That's not the case, because he stands and he does other things also. Therefore, standing and singing are not invariably related. So we cannot say standing is the hetu for singing. So standing becomes the lakshana, a characteristic of the singer. While singing, not singer. Or while he is singing, this standing becomes the characteristic, lakshana. Sthitehe karyantarvarakatva bhava. Since sthiti kriya does not necessarily exclude karyantaram, other karyam. Other karyam means other than singing. Ubhayarthatkatve vakya bheda syat. If you say that it is both lakshana as well as hetu, then one thing will convey two things, and that is not proper. One thing should convey only one thing for the clarity. Pashyan pratibede ityatra tu brahma darshanam brahma prapto hetur bhavati. However, pashyan pratibede, while seeing the self is Brahman, he attained Brahman. When you say brahma darshanam brahma prapto hetur bhavati, the seeing of Brahman, knowing of Brahman becomes a hetu, the cause for attainment of Brahman. Because whenever Brahman is attained, he definitely sees Brahman as a self. Whenever attainment of Brahman is, there is necessarily the seeing of Brahman as a self. That are always associated, and therefore, or attainment of Brahman cannot take place unless seeing of Brahman is. Therefore, we say that seeing of Brahman as a self is a cause for attainment of Brahman. So Pashyan is connected with Pratibede by way of Hetu. Tathacha, that is given Samagri Avyavahita Uttarakshane Karyotpatte Avashyakatvat. Whenever Samagri or necessary conditions are satisfied, necessary ingredients are there to create an effect, the effect must necessarily take place. So when Samagri, when rice and dal and all these things are mixed, then Samagri is not only rice and dal but fire also. Not only that but time also. That is also Samagri. So when all that, then khichdi must take place. So Samagri means different ingredients. Ingredients should also include heat and time, and then water and rice and dal. When this Samagri is there, then khichdi must take place. If it does not take place, then this will not be called the cause. So cause is a certain ingredient which when present, effect must necessarily take place the next moment. Immediately. Not that the cause is there and the effect doesn't happen. But Swami, when we mix the dal and rice, the khichdi does not happen, because as you said, heat also is required. But then also it takes so long, because time also is required. So time, place, heat, all of that is part of samagri. And when that samagri is, khichdi must take place. Still it doesn't take place, you must have messed up something, What happens? You do khichdi, it goes away along with the steam, It blows away. This phenomena also we see. That along with the steam from the cooker, khichdi also gets blown away. And so sometimes we don't know that maybe they don't describe samagri enough. When they give the cookbook, then they don't know what all information is needed. So salt to taste and this kind of things they write, in general. And therefore it doesn't become proper samagri. Then when you use that cookbook or recipe, you don't come out with the same product. That is not the problem with the cook. The problem is the fellow who wrote the recipe does not take into account all possible variables, that's all. Or all possible ingredients that are required are not properly included there. Therefore, or maybe they expect some general knowledge that we don't have, whatever it is. But samagri avyavahita. Avyavahita means without intervention, uttarkale, the right away, immediately. Karyotpattehe avashyakatva. If something is a hetu, that is necessary that the karya, the effect, must take place when all the necessary conditions are satisfied. Na karyantara prasakti. In case of pasyan pratipede, there is no other karya. Meaning, while seeing attainment of Brahman necessarily takes place, nothing else is involved while seeing Brahman as the self. It is drishtanta vaishamyam asti. In this manner, there is a disparity between the drishtanta and darshtanta. Sūtra, Vyakarana Sūtra, Devartha. Lakshana means characteristic. Vyavartaka param, parichayaka param va. Either a lakshana, a characteristic which distinguishes a given thing from everything else, or lakshana is something that enables you to recognize something. So, when we say that Tishtan Gayati, while standing he sings, that gives the acquaintance of this person, his particular characteristic. Not that necessarily that distinguishes this person from everything else in the world, but it just gives a general character. So, parichayakam. Parichaya is some chinha, some characteristic is there with which we can see this person, by which this person is acquainted with. Now go ahead with that, page 155, Vyakarana Sutrena. Uktaritya vihito yash shatru pratyaya, that we saw. उत्तरकालीन गान क्रियां प्रति स्थिते व्यावर्तकत्व रूपार्थे प्रोच्यमाने विद्यमान धातोः परस्य वर्तमानार्थक लट् प्रत्ययस्य आदेशत्वेन विहितः यः शत्रु प्रत्ययः सोऽपि स्थानिवदादेश इति न्यायेन वर्तमानार्थकः एव उत्तरकालीन गान क्रियां प्रति स्थिते व्यावर्तकत्व रूपार्थे प्रोच्यमाने. When you want to say that the sthiti or the standing is a characteristic associated with the act of singing, then वर्तमान विद्यमान धातोः परस्य वर्तमानार्थक लट् प्रत्ययस्य आदेशत्वेन विहितो यः शत्रु प्रत्ययः. In that case, so when this is to be conveyed, then instead of the suffix of the vartamanakara or lat, you apply this shatru pratyaya. Sthanivad adeshah means shatru pratyaya takes the same sthanam as that ting pratyaya. So either you could have said tishtati, instead of that you said tishtan. So to stha, if you had applied ting pratyaya, it would have been tishtati. But to stha we applied the shatru pratyaya, became tishtat, and then the present, the nominative singular is tishtan. But then that serves the same, but it takes the same place. Sthanivat. Sthani means the one who has the sthana. In that case, the ting pratyaya. Sthanivat adesha. Adesh always replaces. It replaces the other one and takes its place. Iti nyayena vartamanarthakah eva. Therefore, the shatru pratyaya is vartamanarthakah, meaning it also conveys a sense of present tense, but an additional sense of being either hetu or lakshana. Tat samarthyat tishtan gayati iti atra sthitehe gana kriyam prati hetutva apratiyoto api tasyaha karyantara avarakatvepi sthiti kale ganam kritavan. Even though tishtan is not the hetu, because it doesn't necessarily exclude activities other than singing, even then sthiti kale ganam kritavan iti bodhena, when we say that he sang while standing, Tatkartruka karyantar abhanat, that when we see that it doesn't do anything other than singing while standing, tatkartuhu gana vidirikta kriyantar madhya nasti pratiyade. That means we find that this person Devadatta who is singing while standing, we find that this is what he does. Between standing and singing, no other karya or effort is involved. Meaning even Devadatta does not make an effort to stand while singing. When he sings, standing happens. That is his characteristic. And therefore, for standing, he has to make no separate effort while singing. This is what the idea is. That singing and standing, both of them happen by one effort alone. Karyantara means if he has to balance himself while standing and he has to do something else for singing, then perhaps you might think that two efforts are involved. But he is so used to standing while singing that while singing he is able to stand effortlessly. Like these women who carry all those 2 or 3 pots on their heads, that when they are walking, no separate effort is required for them to balance those pots, then that balancing the pot and walking. So while walking, they are carrying the pots. So carrying the pot and walking do not involve 2 separate efforts. Therefore we call it Lakshanam, that they carry the pots while walking. This is a characteristic that they have, which other people may not be able to accomplish. Then when suppose we have something on our head, and when we are walking, then what happens? 2 efforts are required. One is to balance this, other is to walk. You do one thing, the other thing stops. You try to balance, you find yourself standing. You start walking, this thing falls. So when one single effort accomplishes both of these things, that is what is the idea there. Tishtan Gayati, standing and singing are accomplished by single effort essentially. No separate effort is required for standing. So also Pashyan Pratipede is single effort. That seeing Brahman as a self, he attained Brahman, no other effort is required. If another effort is required, then perhaps another karya is required. Then we would say that singing requires an effort separate from standing. Or attainment of Brahman requires an effort separate from seeing Brahman. In which case, karyantaram, another karya is involved between the two. In which case, we may have to say that attainment of Brahman is a product of that karya and not product of seeing. But here, it is a product of seeing. In that sense, दार्ष्टान्तिके भी ज्ञानकर्तुः ब्रह्म प्रतिपत्ति क्रिया व्यतिरिक्त कार्यांतर मध्ये नास्ति प्रतीयते. And in this one of दार्ष्टान्तिके Pashyan Pratipede also you find that for this Jnanakartuhu, for the knower of Brahman, Brahma Pratipatti Kriya Vidirikta Karyantar Madhya Nasti, that there is no another karya between seeing and attainment of Brahman, iti pratiyade. Tathacha Purusha Kartraka Karyantar Abhava Rupa Samyena Tishtan Gayate iti Drishtantaha. So this is the similarity between Drishtanta and Darshtanta. There is dissimilarity also, in as much as one is Hetu, other is Lakshana, but similarity is Tathacha Purusha Kartruka Karyantara Abhava Rupa Samyena. There is an absence of another effort on the part of this person who is involved with these 2 kriyas, that these 2 kriyas do not involve separate effort. This is the common thing between Drishtanta and Darshtanta. Pashyan Pratipede iti asya yuktaha ityaha ityarthaha. That Tishtan and Gayanam, standing and singing, does not require 2 separate efforts. Seeing and attainment of Brahman also do not require 2 separate efforts, and in that aspect alone, these 2 are similar. Karyantara madhya na bhati. Alright. Nasti, another part is na bhati iti pathantaram atra samichinam karyantar abhana pratipadagattvena, that we do not see any karyantaram. That karyantar is not there, we do not see any karyantaram. So that clarity is there of seeing an absence of other karyantaram. And therefore, subodhakatvat pathantaram samichinam. This is clearer, na bhati. So the Tikakara thinks that patha is a better patha. Okay. Now this much is clear. So this Drishtanta. Now page 155, Ratnaprabha continues. Kincha jnanat ajnana nivritti shruyate. Shruyate means shrutya pratipadyate. The Shruti always teaches us. Jnanat ajnana nivritti. That removal of ignorance is by knowledge. Jnanasya vidheyatve karmatvat avidya nivartakatvam na yuktam. What is it that eliminates ignorance? What do we learn from Shruti? That elimination of ignorance takes place only by knowledge. This is what we find from Shruti also. Not only that it is our experience that darkness is removed by light, or similarly ignorance is removed by knowledge, but Shruti also says that ignorance is removed by knowledge, not by karma. Nowhere do we find in the Shruti any mention of a statement which says that having done something, the ignorance went away. Every time we find that having known something, the ignorance is gone away. Kincha, furthermore, jnanat ajnana nivrittihi. The removal of ignorance is by knowledge. Shruyate, this is what the Shruti always teaches us. Jnanasya vidheyatve. If jnana were vidheya, meaning jnanam were something that is to be done, or about which there is a vidhi or an injunction, then karmatvat, it would become karma. Avidya nivartakatvam na yuktam. So karma cannot remove avidya, that we have said. Because karma is not opposed to ignorance. Karma itself being product of ignorance is not opposed to ignorance. While we find that knowledge is opposed to ignorance, therefore knowledge cannot be karma. Karma is not opposed to ignorance, and therefore karma cannot remove ignorance. We find that jnana removes ignorance. Therefore jnana is opposed to ignorance. Therefore jnanam cannot be karma. Karma is what? Vidheyam, that which is enjoined. Similarly, knowledge also had been enjoined. In that case, knowledge, that means it will become upasana, understand? If jnanam becomes enjoined, that will become upasana. So by the word jnana is meant upasana here, then it will become a karma. In that case, karma cannot remove ignorance, because karma is not opposed to ignorance. So how to interpret the word jnanam is also a debate. Whether the word jnanam means upasana or whether the word jnanam means knowledge, seeing. Since in the Vedas or even the Upanishad also, the word jnanam or vidya is employed sometimes also in the sense of upasana, therefore sometimes they question that everywhere, whenever the word jnanam is employed, it should be in the sense of upasana. Therefore it is vidheya. Therefore it becomes something to be enjoined. Because karma always requires an instruction. Whenever somebody has to do something, some prayojanam must be there. In jnanam there is no prayojanam, because jnanam itself becomes prayojanam in case of the self. But in karma, some effort is involved. Jnana does not involve effort, because when the samagri is there, when the object is there, when the eyes are open, without any effort, knowledge takes place. And therefore, you don't require prayojanam to see a tree and see all kinds of stuff which you don't want to see sometimes. But since it does not involve effort, we see all kinds of things and hear all kinds of things. Doesn't need any effort. But doing something calls for an effort. If you are not able to hear, putting an hearing aid and listening requires an effort. So some people don't do that. He won't turn that on, We think that he's listening to us. He's not listening to us, because he's not turned on. To bolte hain. He keeps talking. Sometimes you get surprised when people, then he starts saying out something and does something. Then we realize that, he has not been listening so far, Now he is increasing his volume. So when effort is required, then prayojanam is required. Purpose, why should I do it? Then adhikaritvam is required. Can I do it? So whenever action is involved, prayojanam, purpose must be involved, adhikari, the qualification must be involved, iti kartavya, the method must be involved, how to do, when to do, all of that is involved in karma. So therefore vidhi or injunction instruction is necessary as to who should do, how should do, what should be done, why it should be done. All of this is conveyed by vidhi. All of the necessary samagri to enable a person to do the karma is all supplied by the vidhi. Similarly, if jnanam were vidheyam, meaning jnana also were an object of vidhi or injunction, In which case, jnanam would mean only upasana, and then that would mean a karma. Karma, as we said, cannot remove ignorance. Whereas Shruti presents jnanam as that which removes ignorance, therefore jnanam cannot be upasana, it must be seeing. That's the point that is being made. Jnanasya vidheyatve कर्मत्वात् अविद्यानिवर्तकत्वं न युक्तम् अतः बोधकाः एव वेदान्ताः न विधायकाः. Vedanta means Upanishad are bodhakaha. They merely teach you, make you see things. Na vidhayakaha, don't make you do things. So, they don't prompt any activity in you, they only want to make you see things. Meaning the Upanishads reveal the facts of life, whereas Karma Kanda reveals things that are to be created. So Karma Kanda reveals things which are not there at the moment, whereas Upanishad reveals things which is there at the moment. So this difference must also be very clearly understood. That what does Upanishad or Vedanta do? What does it do? It reveals the things the way they are. It only reveals the realities of life. Doesn't ask you to do anything really. Ideally speaking, if you can see what Vedanta reveals, nothing needs to be done. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmahi Vanaparah. This is what Vedanta says. That Jagat is Mithya, Brahma is Satyam, and that Brahma alone is the self. Brahman is Satyam, is real, and Jagat is Mithya, projection, and that Brahman, which is the Adhisthana of Jagat, that is the self, and nothing else. This is what Vedanta reveals. And if you can see this fact, that's it. It is a fact, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, whether you know it or not. Fact is a fact. That's why it is called Swayam Siddham. Doesn't depend upon our acceptance that the fact that I am Brahman or that Jagat is Mithya, whether we accept it or not, doesn't matter. That's what it is. And fact also in this case is self-revealing, provided we see it. The fact, Satyam always reveals itself. It requires eyes to see, that's for sure. In this, Satya always requires eyes of the buddhi to see. That is why the scientists develop those eyes. Like a Newton or all these scientists develop eyes to see the truth which is evident. And when you develop that perception, then you can see evidently, yeah, this is there. How did we miss so far? Because my attention was elsewhere. I just did not pay attention. And so, if you say that preparation is required for preparing our eyes, then it's okay. But no effort is required to see things because Vedanta or Upanishad deals with the facts of life. And also says very boldly that if you understand the facts of life, nothing needs to be done. There can be no sorrow or samsara at all because samsara is merely a product of not seeing the facts the way they are. Not seeing the self the way it is, not seeing the world the way it is, not seeing God the way it is, that's all. Not seeing them the way they are is the only cause of samsara, and seeing the way they are is liberation. Because liberation also is a fact. Therefore, Vedantas know that merely knowing the facts is enough in life. Natu vidhayakaha. Therefore, you don't have to create reality. Reality doesn't have to be created. And also, perception doesn't require any creation. Perception takes place when the samagri is there. If perception does not take place in spite of Vedanta, that means that samagri is not there. What is samagri required for any perception? You require the object of perception called prameya. You require the eyes, in this case called the pramanam. So then the pramanam is there and the prameya is also there, then prama or the knowledge must take place. In this case, Brahman is very much there. Atma is the self.